Welcome to the future. Except it's the past. The future came, went, and we missed it. It always takes me by surprise how I change my mind as the years unfold. The truther, on a journey, who fell down too many dead-end rabbit holes and walked into many a bear trap. Truthers don't tend to change their mind much, do they? They are on their prescribed paths, and they'll ram that propaganda down your throat until they become irrelevant or worse. I used to think the idea of a reset was a terrible thing, that the big shots of this world, the high-ups, the elites, were going to push the button and take us back. There would be a black swan event, and then I imagined some kind of dystopian system akin to the vision presented by the World Economic Forum was going to be rolled out and imposed upon us against our will. It didn't happen like that, did it? But it's happening anyway. It's being slowly and subtly implemented. And all without any big fanfare or the announcement of a brand new dating system to mark the reset. A reset? Huh. We already live in some kind of hell. Since 2012, everything has steadily become worse. And I dare not speak my mind too much, but it's gotten to the point in 2024 where I do feel quite fed up with the whole state of things, especially the state of Europe. And I'm a positive guy, so I dread to think how others like me feel. Some days it feels like the only option is for someone, somewhere in the shadows, to push the button, to bring it all crashing to the ground, to burn the forest. How else do we escape this hell? It seems like the only answer is to tear it all down and then start again. A reset. Is it bad that, after all this time, and on some days, I start to want the black swan to emerge? That amorphous, elusive, and dreadful creature. The one I always thought would be terrible for all of us. And not just because I'm bored, and because I got hooked on the dopamine hit that pondering such events produces in the brain. No, but because, on some days, it feels like there's no alternative. Welcome. They tell us Europeans are not having enough children. It's the same with European Americans and Australians. What a dreadful thought, that Europeans have just given up on the miracle of reproducing. That they would rather live for their careers, so they can have multiple holidays every year, and so they can afford to mosey down the high street with their frappuccino in one hand, while they spend what little they have left in their bank accounts after the rent and bills and tax, and spend it all on the most useless things civilization has ever dreamt up. You don't have to take my advice, but having children causes you to evolve. It focuses and solidifies your very existence. It's almost unimaginable before the fact, but suddenly, with that little person on the scene, that little person who depends on you completely, suddenly your life has a real purpose. A purpose beyond you. Suddenly, you now exist solely to be a memory for your children. And that's a great thing, and it comes with great responsibility. Imagine thinking that your career, or the useless junk you buy when shopping, or a holiday with someone you call your partner, is more important than replicating your genes and carrying your bloodline into the future. We really do live in some kind of hell, where we've given up on bringing new life into this world and spend most of the precious time we have in this one little life scrolling endlessly through a black screen. And what does The Matrix have to say about European birth rates? It says, and please do excuse the bad language, "Dear white men, you're fucked. You're being replaced because none of you have children. Even those of you bitching about the replacement online like little girls don't find the gumption to fuck. I see white men bragging about having 5 kids, as if it's an achievement. Lol. 5. Lol. Per year, right? Oh, all you white boys lost control of your women, and now they won't accept multiple wives anymore. Now they tell you they don't want any more kids. One's enough. They don't want to do their God-given job anymore. No, they want Instagram likes instead. So your genetic potential is stumped by the whims of some singular female. A female who takes 9 whole months to grow a single baby. Other races have multiple ovens for bread. We're not cooked. Some bitch is screaming at you about loyalty, and you're sitting there saying, yes baby, jerking off to when she's asleep, and maybe cheating with a side bitch. Condom on. Oh no, I couldn't get another woman pregnant. My wife would kill me. Total fucking losers. Soon your race will be nothing more than a few pages in a history book. A lesson on what happens when you fuck the female psyche so hard they're obsessed with money and social media, as opposed to being one of many baby factories for a king. 30 children minimum for the dons. White people, go talk to your best friend wife about what to do this weekend. Maybe you can take a nice walk around IKEA. Enjoy extinction. The greatest trick the Matrix ever pulled was convincing you that some have broken free to help you. Red or blue pill, who cares, you're still swallowing something. Andrew Tate's tweet highlights that the native Europeans are being replaced in their own countries through the importation of migrants from Africa, the Middle East and Asia. Is he wrong? Is this a conspiracy theory? Is it unfounded? Is it a dangerous thing to say? The Great Replacement.
Everyone who has eyes can see it. The native, white, Christian European population is being replaced at an ever-accelerating rate. Let me back this up for you with some statistics from my home country. Let's take Amsterdam, the capital. Amsterdam currently consists of 56% migrants. The Hague, 58% migrants. Rotterdam, almost 60% migrants. And of course, most of these immigrants come from non-Christian, non-Western, African and Middle Eastern countries. Conclusion, the Dutch population is already outnumbered in the majority of our cities. But let's look onwards. London, 54% migrants. Again, conclusion, native population outnumbered. Brussels, color me shocked, 70% migrants. Conclusion, native population majorly outnumbered. And other Europeans will of course follow suit soon if they haven't already. So I'm going to draw the forbidden conclusion here. The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory, it's reality. And what's interesting about replacement is that the establishment will either deny its existence, or when they admit to it, they say that it's a good thing that the native European population is soon no longer a majority on its own continent.
Well, when you listen to what Tate and Eva are referring to, then no, they are not wrong. No matter where you fall ideologically, it just boils down to statistics. If one type of thing goes up and another type of thing goes down, then the latter will inevitably become less prevalent than the former. It's basic maths. As Tate highlights, the stagnant birth rates of Europeans, in comparison with the very lively birth rates of migrants, especially those who practice polygamy or have multiple wives, means that in the near future, the native Europeans will slowly start to become outnumbered within their own countries. And that's not controversial or racist or hateful. It's just statistics and a logical conclusion. And despite his tone, an almost gleeful euphoria at the notion that Europeans may go extinct, I'm sure many would agree with Tate on some level. And in some ways he is correct that yes, Europeans have an issue with decline in birth rates, and we need to keep having children. However, there is a nuance that is being overlooked here. And a gentleman who goes by the name of Pox Populi really hits this nuance right on the head with an article he wrote called Population Doom. I recommend you read it for yourself, and in its entirety, as I won't do it justice now. He acknowledges that it is indeed concerning that Europeans are having less than 2.1 children per family. But he also makes a very good point, and I've highlighted it here. Whenever I see people talking about population collapse, I am always quick to check the numbers. Let us stick with Japan. Again, Elon Musk has stated that Japan will cease to exist and its low fertility rate will be to blame. And yet there have never been more Japanese people alive now than at any time in history. The same can also be said of Europeans. The population of Europe has been on a steady incline since the 1600s. Now, in the 21st century, the population of Europe is starting to plateau. The idea is that nations with small populations won't be able to compete with the abundance of elite human capital to be found in nations which number in the hundreds of millions. This strikes me as rather odd. The population of England, for example, was never more than 10 million before the year 1800. Yet by the year 1800, this small island nation had already spread across the world, conquered huge swathes of new lands, and established itself as a force of commerce and innovation. Quality of people matters, not quantity. What a good bloody point that is. And it reminds me of Tartaria, or the old world order, as they now like to call it. You know, that dead-end conspiracy rabbit hole in which YouTubers and TikTokers look back at the past through historical photographs and ponder about resets and advanced technology, with some flirting, and perhaps a little too eagerly, with the idea that Europeans were not responsible for building these cities, with some relishing that perhaps another group of people built the European and American cities of the past.
Oh, we've got your ass. We've got your ass now. Now this is what it looked like after the last reset. So after the fall of the Tartarian Empire, there was a lot of Tartarian tech just lying about, and the settlers, which you know as the founders, moved in and salvaged what they could. I mean, how many times have I told you that these men with the horse and wagon did not build these structures, and this is not their technology,
And it did confuse me for a very long time, that the past looked like this, while the population was so tiny, that these cities seemed so empty. How did we build such glorious structures when the population was so much smaller back then? The Tartaria, or Old World Order folk, argue that building cities like this with just horse and buggy would have been impossible for the Europeans, and therefore they try and argue that a different kind of people with a different kind of technology built all these structures. What these folk won't tell you is that it wasn't just small populations with horse and buggy. They won't emphasise just how powerful the Industrial Revolution of the 17 and 1800s actually was. They won't emphasise the railways, the steam-powered stone-cutting machines, the brick-making machines, the steam engine trucks, and the whole host of various innovative and very practical technological solutions Europeans applied to build these magnificent cities. Of course they won't show you that. Like I said, many of the old worlders flirt a little too hard with the idea that Europeans didn't build their own cities. They flirt a little too eagerly with the notion that Europeans may go extinct. And they are relying on their audience's naivety and ignorance. And naivety and ignorance that I too once possessed. But even with all this grand, innovative and brilliant technology, there is still the matter that the population during the 17 and 1800s, where many of these cities saw huge upgrades in infrastructure and architecture, were indeed very small populations. But you see, Vox Populi is right. It's quality that matters and not quantity. And funnily enough, it seems that small populations are actually more geared up to producing a higher quantity of quality people. And it makes sense. With a smaller population, there'd be more solidarity and sense of community. There'd be more sense of unity and working toward a shared project, the community itself. Highly populated areas are areas of transient interactions. No one really knows or recognizes anyone else. They see hundreds of different faces a day, and then they never see those faces again. This leads to a low-trust society. Individuals think selfishly, are wary of others, and may act in antisocial ways because they, correctly, feel that there are no consequences to their bad and egotistical behaviour. People will be less kind with one another, because the likelihood of their kindness being reciprocated by someone they'll never see again is nil. On the other hand, small societies promote solidarity and conviviality. Small societies also boost each member's sense of self-worth. In a small society, almost all the jobs people do contribute to the well-being of the community. The butcher is perhaps the only one in town. He does his job well. His reputation depends on good word of mouth. Everyone knows him and respects him. Same for the veterinarian, the florist, the baker, the greengrocer, the IT expert. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Everyone had their role. For the first time in history, we live like we do. Most of us without real roles that contribute toward our communities. The proof is in the pudding. As our population grows and our technology becomes more, quote, advanced, unquote, things tend to get worse, more unstable, more fractured, and the overall quality tends to decline. Our food is not as nutritious as it once was. We no longer write exquisitely like we once did. Our music is less sophisticated and complex, and our architecture pales in comparison. There's a reason they say that they don't build them like they used to. A higher population count does not guarantee higher quality or a better way of life, and I think most would agree. How did Moscow look like this with a population of under 1 million? Well, in the context of this article, the answer's simple. You see, we want the answer to be complex and interesting and perhaps conspiratorial, but it isn't. It looked like this because it had a suitably sized population, where the majority had a role that went into contributing to the well-being and quality of the community. Obesity was rare, autoimmunity was rare, dysfunction was rare, most people worked manual jobs, most people specialised in some sort of craftsmanship. Our societies were truly productive. There wasn't a surplus of pseudo-productivity designed to keep the masses who make up our inflated populations in some kind of work. Or worse, on some kind of state benefit scheme. It is a fallacy to assume that just because an overall population is on the lower side, that they would not be able to create and build beautiful towns and cities. And to declare that Europeans did not or could not have built their own cities in the past is, no matter what angle you approach it from, a political assertion. When the Old World Order or Tartaria folk tell you that a specific piece of construction or construction method or time frame is impossible, what they are actually doing is trying to deny and erase the Europeans' history. They are sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of their viewers with the intention to create an absence in history, one where the European is uprooted from their historical period and achievements and can now be replaced with another people. Denying the construction history of Europeans in Europe, America, and beyond is denying the ingenuity and skills of our ancestors for no reason other than one, and this is the most innocent, to promote sloppy, sci-fi style conspiracy. And two, and this is its worst and most sinister, to partake in the erasure of the European historical identity during a time when the European is not reproducing like they once did. At the turn of the 20th century, the population of the United Kingdom was around 38 million. Today it's well on the way to crossing 70 million. And has the United Kingdom improved? When you look back at the old photographs, it doesn't feel like it has. When I look around me, it certainly doesn't feel like it has. We have regressed. And of course, rose-tinted glasses and everything, I know. Life was harder back then. Much, much harder. But that doesn't mean it's better now. So what kind of answer does Tate want? What would he like to see? One solution, as Eva and others have highlighted, is just to stop immigration, close the borders, and initiate remigration schemes. And that would be a start, again, in a statistical sense. But the reason we don't, or haven't implemented this, is because our economic models rely on endless population growth, and all to our detriment. Therefore, doing this does require at least some kind of financial reset. But closing borders is not what Tate is looking for here with this tweet of his. He wants to encourage competition. And is that the answer? For Europeans to start a breeding war with other races and peoples so already overpopulated cities and areas can continue to swell and grow until more space is needed, until we become even more bloated, and the quality of everything sinks to even lower levels. You see, polygamy doesn't result in a productive society. Those dons that Tate refers to, or the alpha male with many different wives, he may do fine, sure, but alphas are few and far between. Most men are useless when it comes to attracting women. And that's why in a polygamous society you end up with a surplus of unproductive beta males left without mating partners. And that's because most females in this type of society want to be part of the alpha circle. So left without mating partners, these beta males get into gangs for lack of company. And the surplus of beta males do not end up producing or contributing toward a higher function in society. A lack of female companionship and intimacy actually leads to their inactivity and low productivity. You see, polygamy doesn't work if you want greatness. That's why the West structured society around monogamy and enforced it through social codes of conduct. It allowed the majority of men to have a chance of having a wife and a family, and it resulted in a high productivity among most males in society. Monogamy is great for building great civilizations. The Romans knew it, the Catholic Church knew it. Europeans must start having more children. That's a fact. The rate is too low. But not to compete. Not because of some red pill theology, but because it really does change your life for the better. and because it would be a tremendous tragedy for Europeans to go extinct, as Tate puts it. But the problem is, so much damage has occurred in our society that it almost seems irreversible. How to change an already established generation's mindset? Why would I want to marry and have children when I can have fun, have a great career, or become a superstar? Or even do OnlyFans and make 70k each quarter? Why would I want to commit to a woman so early in life and have a family when I might meet that one who I've been waiting for later down the line? It boils down to that kind of mentality, doesn't it? Maybe there is something much better waiting for me in the future, or I'm young, I want to have fun. You see, that kind of social conditioning runs very deep now. You can't just reverse it by telling people to have more children. And then there's other issues, some burgeoning and new, like this cancer epidemic that's plaguing young people under the age of 50. And why is that happening now, and at a time of low birth rates? I'm sure if we followed and trusted the science and looked hard enough, we'd be able to pinpoint the cause. Nonetheless, I never seem to tune in to the mainstream media and find some good news. Just bad to worse. And on some days it does start to become a bit too much. When I find myself in Tesco's or packed in like a sardine on the underground, moving from A to B, and surrounded by people, by so many people, to the point where it feels like I cannot breathe because there is not enough space. And each day when I look on the news and see nothing but more and more spiralling, the cost of living, war, declining birth rates, cancer epidemics, the endless stabbings and crime, two-tier policing, protests in the West about everything other than the future of the West. When it all gets to me just a little too much, it's then that I do start thinking about that black swan. That thing that I think many of us can feel. We can sense it exists out there somewhere, waiting, and ever moving closer. And is that messed up? Is it wrong? On some days I feel like it can't come quick enough. Is it wrong to look at these old photographs of such quietness and such glory, and to long for this kind of Europe again? It would take one hell of a black swan though, wouldn't it? A mud flood cataclysm certainly wouldn't do it. And then the feeling passes and I'm back to feeling okay and not wanting the black swan, and feeling that I was foolish to even think such things, that I shouldn't tempt something like that. But pondering black swan events does make me think of the Black Death of the Middle Ages, and how it wiped out a third of Europe's population, and how it disrupted medieval Catholicism, that ever wondrous and mysterious form of Christianity, the most unique form of Christianity and the only ever real European expression of Christianity. Once upon a time, Europe was a realm of cathedrals, and the Black Death changed everything. A proper great reset. And what happened in its wake? Well, Europeans didn't go extinct, did they? The continent wasn't taken over by polygamous dons from the East, or Africa, or some other place. And Europeans didn't resort to polygamy to increase the population numbers. No, what happened was a boom in creativity and art, innovation in technology, and a revival of the classical world that once made Europe the greatest of all time. Dear white man, you're not fucked. You've never been fucked, and history teaches us that. It's just at present there isn't an immediate solution or answer at hand to resolve the major problems plaguing the West. And maybe the black swan is the answer or the opportunity. The event, the forsaking of all contracts, the force majeure. I'll be damned if a flood isn't coming. But then again, we've been saying that for years, right? And maybe it will never come. And maybe it's not good to egg something like that on. Maybe wishing for a reset is going a little too far. And maybe, just maybe, things will continue to get worse and worse. Maybe we haven't even seen the worst yet. That's right, swallow the black pill of doom and accept it. And then get over it. And focus on starting a family and building a good life, which is all in our control. And then suddenly, just like that, it will all click into place. And that's a white pill at the end of the rabbit hole. And it's the only pill you've needed since beginning this journey. You can have the best time during the worst of days.